We are live. Hi, friends. I am excited to do office hours today. So let me just wait a second while Zoom gives me this URL that I can share with friends on Discord. There it is. We are live. Okay, sweet. And let me share that. Bum-ba-dum. Okay, cool. So let me share my screen so y'all can see what I'm looking at. So this is the KCD Discord, and it's great. And I suggest that you join. The best place to join and way to join is go to kcd.im/discord, or you can go to my website and there's a Discord link there. And this is where I answer questions. This is where I'll post links and stuff. And you're more than welcome to join the Zoom call as well. And you'll find a link to that on this office hours page. And I give preference to people who join the Zoom call. So feel free to join that. If you don't want to, or you can't, or whatever, then you can ask on the Discord, and I normally have time to answer questions on Discord as well. Yeah, so this is just your chance to ask me questions, and I do my best to answer. And yeah, any questions from folks who are in the Zoom meeting right now? Okay, cool. We just got some listeners. That's fine. And then let's go to here, hold on a second. Okay, let's go to, there we go. I think, yeah. Kiwi asked this question in a GitHub thread. And they're asking about how to test something. So here we're I've had so many issues related to the ACT warning in the React testing library repo. Every single one of them has a different solution, but they all kind of boil down to one of the problems that I talked about in this blog post. So I'm going to just reference this here. Yeah, they all come down to one of the things in here. And actually, this blog post, I even have, I think, four different videos explaining what the error is or what it means for the particular situation and how to solve it. So yeah, give that a look for sure. But this asker is talking about the use async hook, which we build as part of Epic React in combination with the auth provider, which we also build in Epic React to either render an authenticated or unauthenticated app, which I show in Epic React. And how would you be able to test the login functionality, for example? So where we have that auth provider is inside of here. And if we look at our tests of the book screen, let's take a look at that. But also if we go to let's see, actually, you know what? I don't think I do have any tests for that. Yeah, that's interesting. I can't believe it. I didn't write any tests for the authentication flow. For that, I do have, as part of Epic React, we do have testing React apps, which we can find here. And one of these, I know we are testing the login form. Let's just look at the final version of these. So yeah, this is testing a login form. So this might be helpful for you as you're testing login functionality. I think it's this one. So let me reply to that here. Yeah, it's so funny. I guess I just, I'd already covered it here. Yeah, okay, good. So this is probably the most complete version of that. Yeah, I'd already covered it here, so I guess I just didn't think to add a test for that in the Bookshelf app, where like in an actual app, you probably would want to test the auth flow. Okay, anyway, so this is their implementation of the auth context or the auth provider and using the use async hook. Here's the Bootstrap app data, very similar to what we have in the Bookshelf app, where we just get all the data that the user needs. If we have an auth token, and their auth comes from their auth provider thing. Okay, and so then here is our auth provider. We're calling use async. We've also got a router and a query client. I'm not sure what that use query client is coming from. So let's take a look. Yeah, from React Query. Okay. And that's being used to clear. So this is React Query version 3. Interestingly, somebody today asked me when the Bookshelf app is going to get updated to version 3 of React Query. And I won't update it until I have a chance to re-record the videos, because I don't want there to be a mismatch between what you see in the videos and what you see in the code. That would just be really confusing and worse than what we have today. However, it did make me think that like it is going to be quite some time before I get a chance to re-record all of that. And it could be really useful if people could see at least what it would take to migrate and from the Bookshelf app or from V2 to V3 in the Bookshelf app. And so today I'll probably live stream it, but I'll do that migration. I think it won't take very much time at all. There probably won't be a lot of changes, but I think it would be really useful for people to see that. And one of these, or this is an example of one of those changes where you need to get the query client from the hook rather than just from like module level stuff. So that may require a bit of refactoring, but nothing like too ridiculous. Okay, anyway, so yeah, everything's looking pretty standard here. Here we're rendering the loader, the error, success. Now, interestingly, all of this logic right here is just frustrating limitations of 100% client-side React. If you don't do client-side, if you're doing Next.js or Remix, upcoming very soon, the beta will be out like in a week. Then you don't have to, you don't have these limitations. You can just render the user's information. You don't have to render a loading screen or anything like that because it's server rendered and it's awesome. Okay, anyway, and then, yeah, all of this is very, very familiar with what we have in the Bookshelf app. Okay, so the test then, we have our custom render of the login page. Right here, we say, wait for these things to appear on the screen. You don't need to do this. I would refactor this to, instead of doing get by label text for those, I would refactor that to be find by label text. And those are promise-based APIs. And then you don't need to do the wait for. You just say await screen dot find by label text, whatever this says, and find by label text, whatever that says. And then, yeah, it'd be that would work just fine. This looks like you're trying to do a regex or something. I don't know. Maybe that's just a normal thing to do, : star, I guess. But yeah, I typically recommend doing a regex and making it case insensitive. But yeah, so you can ditch the wait for, maybe even, in fact, this assertion does nothing. It's not even an assertion. You're creating an assertion, but you don't actually assert anything. And you don't really need to. So I would drop the expect and I would just say await screen dot find by label text and await screen dot get by label text. Drop the wait for, drop the expect. Okay, and then we're typing in await get by label text. This await does nothing because get by label text doesn't return a promise. And so what would probably be even better now looking at the rest of this is just ditch all of this, like delete that whole thing. And then right here, change this get to a find and change this get to a find. And you'll be 100% just like you were before. So like this, that would be one way to improve this a lot, is just delete that and change these gets to find. You already have the await in there. So we're filling in the username and password, and then we submit the form. So we click on the submit button, and then we expect text is only available for logged in users. Yep, that works just fine. I would ditch the wait for and switch to find by text. This actually has, I've got a common mistakes. Yeah, I've got a kid who forgot that that is working. Hold on a second. Let me just paste that there. I'll be right back. my boy was crying. He was sad about something. And that's why it's awesome to work from home, because then I can give him a hug and make him feel better. And he was feeling better as he walked away. So success. Okay. So yeah, there are a couple common mistakes, and the biggest one I'm seeing here is using wait for when you could just do find by for this. So yeah, expecting that you're seeing text only available for logged in user, that works fine. So the one thing that I'm not seeing from this is any mocking, and that's fine if you want to actually hit the authentication provider and all of that stuff. If and you want to, you probably want to get that like in a test database or something like that. And then that means you'd need to get all of that set up. That's one approach to this. This layer of testing, I typically mock out all HTTP calls, and that's where MSW comes into play. And I show you exactly how to do that in this part of Epic React, or you can just look at the material there. So anyway, I hope that is helpful. So yeah, wish you the very best of luck with that. All right, sweet. Fun little question there and answer. Feel free to interrupt me. Anybody, well, I'll just stop right now. Anybody in the Zoom call have a question before I move on to the next question in Discord? Oh, I just noticed somebody chatted in Zoom. I should be able to figure out a way to disable the chat in Zoom. Don't chat in Zoom, chat in the Discord. That way everybody can see it. But yeah, if you have a question and you're in the Zoom call, don't bother chatting. Just unmute yourself and talk. Or you can just ask in here if you don't want to talk. Somebody said that they had a question here, so I'm waiting for them to unmute themselves. No? Okay, cool. Then I'll just move on.
No, it's fine. I will ask in Discord.
Okay. Yep, sure. Okay, so Rishabh, or Rishab, sorry, I don't know how to say that. But asking a question on Twitter, and yeah, so in here, I just gave a little bit of feedback. They were just kind of asking about the is loading and is disabled, probably referencing my blog post about like stop using is loading Booleans. So I'll just paste that right there for folks to look at. And as I was looking over this code, my first thought was, okay, so you've got an is loading and it is disabled. This means that like, can those two things, well, what did I say? I said they can't happen at the same time. There was some reason I said that. Oh, right, yeah. It was this function right here, getting the button state. So this get button state returns loading or disabled or active. And so this means that the button state can't be loading and disabled at the same time, which may or may not be what you want. In my mind, loading and disabled are two completely separate states. And so it wouldn't make sense to me to have those two. And then as I looked at it further, so I sent my response, but then I looked at it again and I was like, there's a lot of extra stuff in here. So I offered to provide extra feedback. And so they're looking for that. Okay, so here's my feedback. Let's see. So the get button state. Let's see, where is that used? It's used inside of this class name thing, which is use memoed. So then we have our class name. Okay, so first of all, this is not a lot of logic right here. If we were to remove all of the functions and everything and just inline everything, it's not a lot. And if I had a code sandbox, I'd refactor all of this for you. But given I don't, I'll just kind of describe it. Yeah, there's no reason to make this a function at all. So I would just put all of this logic inside of here. And then there's also no reason to make this memoized at all either. The only reason that you memoize something is for, what's the word? Identity stability. And this is a string, so identity stability is irrelevant because it's a primitive. And you only need identity stability for like objects. So that we don't need it for that. The other reason is if there's some performance issues here, like computationally expensive code. This manipulating strings and arrays is totally not computationally expensive at all. And so this is actually worse on from a performance standpoint than just putting all of this directly in the function outside of these memorizations. So just that alone simplifies your code a fair amount. The other thing that I would say is, yeah, like everything that I talked about in this stop using is loading booleans applies to both is loading and is disabled. So I would, yeah, I would separate that. These are props that are coming in. So I guess that's like sort of okay. But my question is, okay, so the state is going into the class name. Okay. Yeah, and I'm guessing that yeah, we've got our SCSS right into here. And so yeah, you're trying to control what classes are applied. And you want to abstract away the styling within this button so that users of the button don't have to care. I'm starting to think maybe it's okay to have is loading and is disabled in this case. But yeah, keep in mind that, well, yeah, it's probably not okay. So people are going to use this. They're going to say button is loading and then whatever else they have in there. But what if they put is disabled? They would expect both of those classes to be applied, but they won't. With the way that the logic is currently written out, they would only be able to see that it's the styling for its loading. Now you have disabled set to is loading or is disabled, which you know, that I suppose that's fine logic for what you're trying to accomplish. But yeah, the classes that are applied, what I would expect is both classes would be applied here. Now, if these are mutually exclusive, then what you might want instead is a state, which could be loading or disabled, you know, whatever, you know, that would be the types, right? Whatever. So it could be loading or it could be disabled, because that's, and actually you've got it right there, button states. So your state type would be button states. And so then people would provide either loading or disabled, and they wouldn't be able to provide them both at the same time, because you don't support both at the same time as far as your implementation is concerned, but your API does. And that's the big problem with is loading Booleans, is that the implementation may or may not support something, but the API supports something else. Even though like, and so then you wind up with unexpected behaviors. So anyway, that's just some feedback that I have on this code. You could really tighten it up, simplify it quite a bit. Yeah, it looks like you're a big fan of lots of small functions, which is fine, I suppose, but I would just challenge you to try to inline some of this stuff, like this label node function. I just take all of this and I don't know, some people don't like ternaries, but this would not be a complicated thing to make a ternary. So I don't know, some people don't like ternaries though. So maybe this is fine, but definitely these two functions don't need to be functions at all. And even if you decide you want to keep them as functions, neither one of them needs to be memoized. And so you can simplify things in that way. Okay, cool. Hopefully that's helpful and interesting. And yeah, good luck. Okay, sweet. Yeah, I'll let you share your screen. Yeah, you could totally do that here in just a second. Let me get to these other ones really quick. And you can go ahead and get your screen ready to go. Gabriel is saying, more general question, when is Redux really useful? I'm hearing a lot of people saying that it's not being used as much as it was some years ago. Yes, that's absolutely the case. Not because Redux changed, but because the ecosystem around it changed. And we have a lot more stuff today than we used to, or a lot more things available now as solutions to the problems that Redux solved than we used to. So yeah, when is it really useful? I really don't know. I think that I used to say Redux was really useful for plugin architectures, and I think that's still the case. Hyperterm is a great example of this. So Hyperterm is a terminal that's like built with Electron. It's all JavaScript, HTML, and CSS, and it allows you to write plugins. And so Hyperterm will dispatch events, and your plugins can listen to all of those events and modify the state. And so that ends up working out really nicely for that sort of situation where everything needs to know about every single state change that happens in the terminal, because a plugin may need to know about that state change that happened and may need to make modifications to the state change. So yeah, I could see it working really nicely in that sort of environment, but like 99.9% of us don't build stuff like that. And so outside of that, it's useful as a state management library. If that's something that you're used to and your team really likes, then yeah, it's still useful for that. And I wouldn't use it for that, because I find that it kind of encourages putting everything inside of the single global store. And so you put too much in there. And now anytime you make a change, you're modifying code that's surrounded by other code that's totally irrelevant to what you're building. And so it's easier to break things and get lost. That was my experience in every Redux code base I ever worked in. But if you don't feel like you're going to run into that problem, then yeah, you could totally use Redux. If you're going to use Redux, then I strongly advise you use Redux Toolkit, because it has all of the bells and whistles that you need to have to make it as palatable as possible. So yeah, good luck. As an alternative, I know somebody's going to ask me this, so I'll just add this blog post as my alternative to Redux, which is basically use React. But yeah, hopefully that's helpful, Gabriel. Okay, Yago, my friend, what's up? Just got moved to a kind of front-end architecture role. Congratulations. I was in that sort of role at PayPal, and it was super interesting and fun and hard. What are some of the things you think are a must know for someone in that position? You really, like, nothing matters on like what you can know, like all sorts of interesting things in the wider ecosystem of like all the tools and bells and whistles and all of that fun stuff. But if you don't know what your company needs, then like your knowledge is pretty useless. You could apply the wrong solution to the wrong problem and stuff like that. So I think probably the most important thing for you to know is what your company needs and what it's doing. Those two things will help a lot. And the delta between those is where you do the most useful work. So what your company is doing versus what it needs, that is really important to get a firm grasp on. So this involves participating in team discussions and looking at pull requests and code bases of the teams that you support. When I was at PayPal, I didn't support, I didn't support all teams of all PayPal for front end at first. Eventually, we created that role and that team for us. But at first I had like 4 or 5 teams that I was helping, and so getting an understanding of what they were using. And when it expanded to all of PayPal, that was a lot harder to do. but at some point you kind of get an idea of what most teams are struggling with, and then make sure that you have open channels of communication with the rest of them, so they can say, hey, we're not being well served by what you're doing. One thing actually that toward the end of my time there, I was working on all of this stuff, and I really wanted to use Emotion and CSS and JS as the de facto standard for how we style stuff at PayPal, and the component library that we were building. But I got a lot of pushback on that, because not all the teams at PayPal were using React yet. And so we wanted to have something lower level that everybody could use, even if they weren't using React, or some of them weren't planning on using React. We had some internal tools teams that were using Angular. And so, getting a good understanding of what your teams that you're supposed to be supporting are using and what they want to do is, pretty critical. So that would probably be the biggest thing. And yeah, once you have that understanding, then you'll know the answer to the next question, which is what's the second most important thing for me to know? And the second most important thing for you to know is understanding all of the tools and technologies that your teams need you to understand. And so that's going to be unique for every position. So yeah, good luck. That's a fun position to be in.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. So like this week, for example, it's like setting up some micro front ends with like module federation. And, like there's a lot of unknowns, and like sometimes you feel like a little bit over your head. Like I had to figure out how to do unit testing with federated modules, which is
that's
like
fun.
not easy because you need to resolve the components from another module. So like those things I'm still figuring out. I feel like there's a lot of new things that I'm going to have to learn, but yeah, like understanding the needs is something that I'm starting to think about. And then the technical side, I feel like you can learn most of the things. So like this is really good advice. Thank you, Ken.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and congrats. That's a big deal. So all right. So Mohammed wants to share their screen. Are you in here? Are you the turning person with the one?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Let
Yes,
me ask. I'll stop sharing my screen. You go ahead and share yours, and we can look at what you need.
Can you see it right now? But I can't hear your voice. I don't know why.
That is because I was muted. Sorry. Go ahead and
yeah, share. I stopped sharing.
There you go.
First of all, sorry for broken English. Yeah.
You're fine.
It's a
no
bit
worries.
hard. Thank you. So I have a kind of switching button that can accept multiple options. It's getting an array of options. And when clicking the positions change and the state change. The thing that I want to do is I want to use it as uncontrolled to match it with form libraries, right? Like React hook form and etc.
Okay.
And for that, I have an input that is hidden, but I can't really, get the value from set the input value, which could be 0, 1, 2, 3, and get the value with uncontrolled components. I had to lift up the state to when I click on submit. I submit the form and add this state to the form and continue my work.
Okay,
if it
so
makes any sense.
Yeah, so you're having trouble being notified or identifying what the value of the input is when the user changes their selection. Is that right?
Basically, I want to set the input value and get it. Setting the things that I test is setting a ref on this thing, and when it's change, when it's the position change, I insert the value into the ref. And then but React hook form uses ref itself, and I can't pass forward the ref to this thing because I'm using the ref already.
Got it. Okay, I think I know exactly how to help you. If you I'll go ahead and share my screen now, and I will show you what you might try. Let me move this out of the way. Okay, so in the Bookshelf app, we actually do something kind of similar to this, and I'll show you actually what the UI looks like first.
The only season that I didn't watch your course, the only part that I didn't watch.
Yeah, no, that's all right. We actually, I don't have a lesson where I show you how to build this in particular. So this will mostly be a reference for you anyway. But yeah, let me share this URL here for folks to look at. You can go ahead and register. It actually doesn't register anything. It's all local in local storage and stuff. But yeah, so what I'm talking about, it may not seem to be the same at first, but it is. What you're building is basically what this is. And that's this rating system right here. So I can choose this one, or I can choose that one, whatever I end up choosing. This is actually a radio button. So if I tab around, and once I get onto the radio, first of all, that should show me that it should give me a focus ring around that, but it's not. So that's a problem. I need to fix that. But anyway, one nice thing about this is I can use the arrow keys. So you really need to think about the accessibility of these sorts of UIs that you're building. And so the way that this works is if we dive in, whoops, there we go, to the actual implementation. You'll see that we have, let me bump that up and I'll scooch it over to the right side here. We have an input and a label for each one of these. And this is actually a fairly common practice for building this sort of an experience, is you have a hidden, kind of like what you had, except it technically doesn't have that attribute hidden, and that's because then a screen reader can't interact with that. I'm pretty sure that's the case, or your keyboard can't focus, and that's what you really need. You need blind people to be able to interact with your the elements you're rendering. So anyway, we've got a input that is hidden using CSS. And that way screen readers will read it and understand it. Yeah, it's really important that you're using semantic HTML here for screen readers and that sort of thing.
Yes.
But next to each one of those, we have the label that's associated to it. So here's our rating, 582. There's 582 right there. And each one of these are associated to that particular input. And so when you associate a label to an input, then interacting with that label, like clicking on it, will actually fire a click event on the input as well. And so that's what makes this work, is where I click on that, I'm actually clicking the label, but it will check that that radio button. And so because all of these are type radio and they have the same name, then they're going to be associated. And so I can, like if I look for, actually I should be wrapping all of this in a form.
A quick question, sorry.
Yeah.
Can I ask? Is it the same as wrapping a label to the element? The input should be child of label.
Yeah, I think you might be able to manage that. Yeah, I think we could put the input inside of here. Yeah, not sure why I didn't try it. I may have tried that and it didn't work. I can't remember for sure. But yeah, so either way, it should work fine. Okay, anyway, that's basically how that works, as we treat it like a radio button, and then you get the value like you would from a regular radio button. So let's take a look at the implementation for this. If we go to the Bookshelf app, and this is our ratings component. And it's kind of wonky for the CSS to make the CSS work. It's kind of, I hate it so much. But the basic idea is we have our stars. So this is an array. Oh, I know that I am only going to have 5. So let me bump that up a little bit. And so I just create an array of 5 elements. I map over those 5 elements, and I create these 5-star React elements. So each one of these is a fragment that has its input with all of the CSS applied. And that includes, you pretend that it's totally visible. So you treat it just like you would a regular radio button input. And like I said, yours is absolutely a radio button. It may not look like it, but that's how it is. A radio button is a group of options where they're all visible at once. So it's not like a select. It's a group of options where only one of them can be selected at a time. And that's what yours is. It's a radio button. And so, yeah, you treat it like a regular radio button. And then here I also, next to that input, or maybe within this label, I guess, however you want to structure that, however it works, I have this label. and then, whatever else you want to have in there. Just make sure that it makes sense. So here what I have is this span that has some CSS applied to make it visually hidden. And so then when a user is using a screen reader, they can see that, oh, okay, this input's label is 1 star or 2 stars or whatever. Let's just try it out. I'm a little nervous because screen readers never behave the way that I'm hoping they will, but let's just try it. So here we go right here. And then we'll tab.
You are currently on a heading level 1. Mark as
remove from this button. 3 stars, selected radio button, 3 of 5. And then if I move, 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star. So it makes it so that people who are reading or interacting with your app with a screen reader will actually know what's going on. So that's what this part is for. So they see, okay, so I know which one is selected. So it's 1 star, 3 stars, whatever. So you want to have something like that. And I make it visually hidden because for the seeing users, they don't need to see that this is 1 star, 2 stars. They know what this means. So anyway, that's what that's all about. And then, yeah, just whatever CSS you need to make for things to work. And that's it. Does that help give you some direction?
Yes, definitely. Radio buttons are the answer, but I had other problem. You had 5 inputs and as a radio. Is it gonna work with React hook form and uncontrolled components?
Probably. I'm guessing React hook form works with radio buttons, and React hook form probably doesn't care about what those radio buttons look like, just so long as it is a radio input or a collection of radio inputs. So what I would do is look up React hook form and how to make radio buttons work, and I'm sure that it will work. Yeah, I don't think it could get very far without being able to support radio buttons.
Yes, my core problem was using input with, without radio buttons. Only with input and value 0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
I treat
so
like that.
My question is, why do you need to do it that way? My guess is
I want to send the value to with post to the API.
Yeah, and radio buttons have been able to, like the value of a radio button selection has always been able to be sent as a post to the API. That's yeah, that's the way that the web works. So if we go form here and action is that, and the method is get or get, and then we have an input name radio, and value is hi. And we do another one, and this one's hello. So then if let's pop this open up here. Here, let's make a submit button. Oh, that should be button.
Button type submit.
I wish I could say that's the first time I've ever made that mistake. Okay, sweet. So why is this not updating? I ran into the same problem the other day. Oh, because I didn't save this. There we go. There we go. Try that again. No. What the devil? Okay, let's just H1. Hi. Okay. Maybe that'll work now. All right, sweet. So now if and I need to make these type radio. Type radio. Radio. And then of course you'd want to have like labels on this, but not great. Hi again. For real? Come on, JSBin, you're better than this. There we go. Okay, sweet. So if I go ahead and select the first one and I hit submit, then we get radio equals hi, and then it like redirected me. But does that make sense? So this is a very normal part of the web, is that even with multiple inputs, if they have the same name, then the value, and when it's a radio button, the checked one is going to be the value for whatever you end up posting. Now, if you're doing Ajax, then like the same thing applies there too. Especially when we're talking about uncontrolled components, you're probably going to look at the form elements and stuff. So here, if we look at elements right here, we have a form controls collection. And here we have the radio named right there. So then you can look through that and find out which one is checked. And here, if we click on that, and you say elements radio value, and we get that it's high. And then if we switch it, now it's hello. And so this should all just work with Reactive Form.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and this is the benefit.
It definitely gonna solve my
Yeah. So this is the benefit of using what the platform offers, and maybe kind of making it look like it's something totally different, for your specific design use case. But if you use what the platform offers, then you get all of this extra stuff for free. So I always try to and in fact, I think that Reach UI uses radios for their oh no, they don't. Sorry, I misspoke. I don't think they use radios for their tabs, but I think they have to build it separately. But let's just see for fun. Yeah, they're just using buttons for their tabs UI. I feel like there was something else that they're using a radio for, but yeah, there's a bunch of extra stuff that you have to build if you're going to be doing something that's not built into the browser though. So for example, I'm using the left and right arrow keys, and so they had to build support for left and right arrow keys on all of these, even though they're just buttons. So they're like, it is non-trivial to make a component that is, or some sort of UI that's not based on some built-in browser API or what's the word? Browser tag, I guess, or element. But sometimes you have to, and that's where you reach out to, or you look at the like accessibility specification. Here you see ARIA controls and ARIA selected, and role tab and stuff like that. And all of that comes from the ARIA specification and stuff. But yeah, yours is totally a radio button.
I always try to, better area, and I even use, I learn a new trick, it's called for wait a minute, I'm trying to make my sense.
No, you're okay. You're good. Yeah, and if you want to share the trick on in the Discord, then I'm sure lots of people would love to see whatever trick you have up your sleeves. But yeah, hopefully that gives you the right direction. I'm going to move on to some more questions because I just noticed we have like 15 minutes left. But yeah, thanks for your question.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah, and there's the fork graph idea is kind of an interesting one, but yeah, you wouldn't want to do that for this one. Okay, Fizog is raising their hand, so I'm going to let them go ahead and ask. What's up?
I have a trick question, I suppose, and it is concerning file size and my experience in writing React functional components with JSX, and I have found this happy medium for me personally. That I can do most things with 150 lines or less. And so I'm just looking for your opinion. I've gotten pushback trying to keep files small, but
Yeah.
It seems to be common in our code base that I've got 500 line files here, and in some cases 1,000 lines or 2,000 lines. And it's just, as the front end lead and the architect that I since I've joined this team, that's hard for me to to deal with these things. So what's the happy medium? What have you found that works well?
Yeah. What in my mind, making a rule about file length or size is has always been really annoying to me. I made a rule for myself in my ESLint config, and I'm always disabling it. I need to remove it from my config because I always have a justifiable reason for the size, because the size isn't the problem. It's the complexity that's the problem. And those two things are correlated, but neither causes the other. So you can have a really, really long or big file that is in no way complex. Just as an extreme example to illustrate the point, WesBoss has this burner email providers thing that in here has this file, emails.txt, that is so big that they won't even show it to you in their display. So it's just an enormous file, right? And it's just lines of domains that are email domains that are fake or whatever. So this is an enormous file, but it is not at all complex. There's nothing complex about this. So like I said, extreme example, but that's what I mean when I say that the length of the file has nothing to do with, is only correlated with how complex that file is, and nothing more. So given that's the case, what's the metric that we should use to decide whether or not a file should be split up into multiple files? And like on that with the email example, we could split it up by alphabetically. So all of the A's are in this file, all the B's in this one, and you could split it up even down to every single provider or domain is in its own file. You could split it that far down. That would be way more complex, right? So you can go on both sides of the extreme here, where you don't split it up at all, or you split it up just way too much. And either one can just be enormously complex, just depending on what it is that we're dealing with. So you just have to keep that in mind, that you can go overboard on the other direction as well. So we had to find a good metric that helps us decide, okay, so when is it necessary to split things up? And that's what I talk about in this blog post and it's actually pretty short, for when it makes sense to break up a component into multiple components. And I'll just stick that right here for you to take a look at. But yeah, I give you a couple. Basically, the only time that you should split a file up into multiple files is when you run into a specific problem. There's got to be a reason to do it. So the burden of proof is on the, should I split this file up? Not on, like, my default is don't split any files up at all. Put everything in a single file, put everything in a single component. And I have to have a reason to take something out. And this gives you a couple of reasons where it would be useful to extract things. So give this a look. I definitely wouldn't recommend making a rule, like a linked rule that says don't make it this long. I certainly wouldn't recommend using one of those rules that says only one component per file. That's basically the equivalent to every single one of those domains should have its own file. Like it's nonsense. I hate that rule, and I would strongly advise against using that rule. It just makes everything more complex. So yeah, hopefully this gives you kind of a good guidance though.
Yeah, very helpful. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. David has raised his hand. Hello, or her hand. I don't know. People can be named David and be whatever gender they want. Hi, David.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hey, perfect. Yeah, so I put in a question into Discord.
Yes.
It should be in the office hours. I think it's the next question. But yeah, maybe you can just take a look at that. I could do a screen
Is it this
share.
one?
Let's see.
Because this is from a person named Philip. But
No, I did it just.
Oh, there it is. Oh my goodness.
Go.
There's been a whole bunch of questions asked. Sorry.
Yeah. All good. Yeah. So basically, what I'm trying to do is a little bit of pre-processing of an image upload using Sun Editor. And I'm having some issues accessing properties for that. I don't know if this fully does. I can do a screen share if need be. Yeah,
let me see if I can make sense of this. So I've never used Sun Editor before, so I may not be altogether helpful. Yeah, let's see if I can zoom that in a little bit. Okay, so what you're saying is you're trying to access some props from your parent component for custom logic when uploading images. Okay, so the Sun editor is doing some stuff and it has some data inside of it that you want the parent to be able to access.
Actually, the reverse. So Sun Editor, I need to access properties from the parent.
Okay, so are you building the Sun editor?
No, it's an
Okay.
existing library.
And so you need, so you have this callback right here, handle image upload before. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so within that callback, you need to be able to access props in the parent.
So within that callback, actually, so it says handle image. I would like to pass a particular prop into there. So let's say I would just extend that callback to pass a parameter that says, you know, user ID. But the weird thing is, Sun Editor has some sort of custom logic that you'll notice how I'm not passing in parameters there. But then, yeah, like right there on where your cursor is right now, I'm not passing in parameters, but Sun Editor itself, if you look to the definition above, is expecting parameters. So when I try to add my own parameter, let's say like the user ID, which I need, it sort of blows everything up because.
I see. Okay, I think I understand what's going on. So here's what I would do. Take this entire function and move it inside of this prompt field component, and then you'll have access to all the props.
Oh, okay. Cool. Awesome.
That makes sense?
Yeah, awesome. Sweet. Quick fix. I like it.
There's another solution if you want to keep this where it is, and that is you could create an inline arrow function right here that accepts files, info, and upload bundler. And then that arrow function inside of that calls this function and passes all the parameters you need.
Okay, is there, I get the inline arrow function.
So here, let me give it just a quick idea. So it'd be, you know,
yeah, sorry, I'm relatively new to this. So
no, welcome to the community. It's great. So we've got files. Let's move that out of the way. Info, upload, handler, and that would call your handle image upload before with the files, info, upload, handler. And then because this arrow function is defined right here, it also has access to the props. So you could say props.userid. And so now you're the one who's calling the handle image upload before. And because this arrow function is being defined inside of the prompt field, it will have access to the props. And so you can pass any additional fields. But personally, I would just move the whole function inside. There's no reason to not do that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Good luck.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, we've got Electo. I'm a freelance web developer. What should roughly charge for web development project? I'm working as the same company before, 4+ years experience, same field. Yeah, that's an impossible question for me to answer, I'm afraid. People make wildly different amounts of money for many different reasons. Experience is one, but also where you live in the world is another, or where your client lives in the world also is relevant. So yeah, I'm afraid I can't answer that. And I've also never done freelance before, so I don't even have experience of my own to back myself up. But if you want to ask people who may have experience, then you could go to the career channel here and ask there if you and people might be able to help answer that question for you. Somebody with actual experience. I have none in that world. So good luck. Shunzi, sorry if I'm saying that wrong. Wondering, can React Query handle complex async workflow? Yes, it can. Normal CRUD application can work well, but how about complicated situation? So yeah, React Query actually knows nothing about CRUD at all. What knows about CRUD is the async function that you stick into the use mutation hook or the use query hook. So yeah, it only has those two things for deciding what to do with the cache invalidation, but you can actually build those hooks or hooks like them yourself and interact with the query cache directly. So yeah, it's totally capable of whatever you need it to do. It actually doesn't know anything about CRUD. It happens to work really well with CRUD, but it would work really well with whatever async thing you're doing. So yeah, the answer is yes. Feel free to pursue that, chase that. Okay, Yoki. Hey, Yoki's in here. Hello. I'll read your question here really quick. I'm the guy who emailed you last week. I wish you could take a look at the CSS in props solution. If you have some time. Yeah, sweet. I've got some time. Yeah, low-level original component library, which can be used as a wrapper to replace image and div. Can also wrap other stuff. Yeah, so it looks like still work in progress. So that's cool. Thanks for letting us know that you're working on it. Yeah, so, oh, right, yes. I actually did something similar to this. You may or may not have heard of this, Glamorous. Yeah, it's kind of fun. So let me show you. I don't know if we have got this or not. This has been deprecated, so I haven't, nobody has really used this in a long time. But yeah, here we go. So what did I call these? I can't remember what these were called. Like component somethings. But anyway, yeah, you'll notice we have props for all of the different CSS things. So I'm not saying that to say your idea is not original. I'm saying that to say your idea is not original. Like it's actually like, here's some validation for you, I guess is what I mean. Yeah, I've gone down this route before and it works, and it's kind of nice to work with at the beginning, but what the biggest challenge is making things consistent. And what you could use, or what you could do is, or what a person could do is use this as a basis for higher level layout sort of components. And then everybody uses those. And most people don't end up using the props other than like a library that other people consume. So this would be like a lower level primitive. I wouldn't recommend building an entire application out of just these kinds of components, because then you get a lot of consistency issues. And if you ever wanted to like change the design around a little bit or something, then you'd have to go around all over and update all of these, which would be a pretty big nightmare. But yeah, if you enjoy authoring like a library of components in this way, then that's a way to do it. And for me personally, I'm moving a lot more over to here, and I'll just share this in case folks in the future want to see that. Yeah, I've been moving a lot more over to Tailwind, and I've been really enjoying that. And there are lots of benefits to Tailwind, and I guess I'll share that as well in case folks are unfamiliar with this. But yeah, keep in mind, Glamorous is deprecated for years. I don't know if Emotion supports that particular feature, but I deprecated it in favor of Emotion. So it must have at the time I deprecated it. It may still exist. I can't remember, but hopefully that's useful and interesting feedback. Feel free to run with it if you enjoy that. But yeah, I'm just really getting into the Tailwind stuff now. Okay, sweet. Philip, what bundler transpiler should I learn first? We've got a bunch. How do you decide to learn old tech that is used now versus new tech that's going to be used in the future? Okay, so if you can get away with it, don't learn any of them. That's what I would suggest. Just focus on building stuff and learn things when the need arises. I wouldn't just say, I'm going to learn this thing. Yeah, we have so many. So I was an expert in Webpack years ago, and I got paid to teach people Webpack for like 2 years. And it wasn't the only thing I was teaching, but that was one of the courses I have on front-end masters and stuff. I would give workshops. And I am so glad that I haven't touched Webpack in quite some time. Even when I was at PayPal, I built PayPal scripts, and I worked on the config for like a year and a half, or maybe not quite that long, maybe 9 months or something. And when I was done with the config, then I moved on to other challenges, and I barely touched the config every now and then, and it wasn't that big of a deal. And then from then on, I haven't touched Webpack in forever, because we have so many awesome meta frameworks that are built on top of tools like Webpack. And so, yeah, I haven't needed to, and I would recommend against diving in deep unless you run into a situation like Yago, for example, needs the federated modules feature from Webpack. So, okay, now it's time to really learn Webpack and dive in deep. But if you're just like, I just want to learn it, I mean, that's fine. If you just want to learn it, that's great. But given that there are so many things for us to learn and to build, I would focus on learning things on an as needed basis, and not just learn it for the sake of learning it. As far as like whether so if we take it away from, I just want to learn things to being interested into the realm of, I want to learn things to improve my skills or whatever, or to improve the product that I'm building, then the decision doesn't become which should I choose to learn, the old stable thing or the new flashy thing that may or may not be super popular. It doesn't become like, should I learn one or the other? It becomes, should I use one or the other? You got to decide which one to use. And again, I would just suggest using a meta framework so you don't have to bother making that choice. But if you do need to make that choice, then how do I decide? I don't know. I have definitely made wrong bets in the past. So one example of this, I don't think I've written about this. Sort of. I don't know if it's on my blog though. Jest. Yeah, migrating to Jest. So I kind of described this a little bit, and I'll reply on here just to keep that thread going, even though it's not exactly related to what you were asking. But in here, I describe how I convinced my team to use Ava, and I went all in on Ava, and it just did not work out for me. And so then we migrated over to Jest. So we'd started on Mocha, and then I said, everybody, let's go to Ava. Did not work out very well. Ava is much better now, but at the time, it just we had a lot of problems. And so then I said, okay, everybody, we're moving to Jest. And they're like, you know what, Ken? I don't know. You kind of burned your social capital around here for a little bit. But yeah, so I've definitely made wrong choices, tech choices in the past, and you just got to eat those and move on with the best knowledge that you have. You don't want to go chasing waterfalls. don't just chase the new and exciting thing all the time. But little experiments help a lot, playing around with little things and making sure that they will scale to where they need to scale for you and your team as you're making those experiments is also really useful and important. Yeah, so focus on what is going to help you build what you want to build, and then learn the things you need to learn to be able to do that. And then when you're deciding whether to use something that's old and stable and new and shiny, you also have to take into consideration that the new and shiny won't have as much support. There won't be as much documentation or tutorials or questions on Stack Overflow, any of that stuff. And so keep that in mind as you're deciding whether to use the new and shiny thing as well. Yeah. Those are a bunch of words. Hopefully they're kind of helpful. Sweet. Nice. Thanks, Philip. So this is Philip's referencing the earlier question about radio buttons. And Philip's one of the React Tech Forum maintainers. Yeah, I figured it's hard to get by without supporting that sort of a fundamental component. So awesome. Okay, Omar is asking, hey, Kent, thanks so much for your help in the community. You're welcome. I'd like to show you my little GitHub app and tests. I'd like to know your opinion. Yeah, go ahead and share it. And during office hours, I can take a look and give you pointers. Yeah, and I answered this already. Did I? Yeah, it was posted twice, but that's okay because I kind of skipped, and so I'm sure they were a little weird. My company thinks Saga and Observable are still a better choice to handle complex async workflow. I disagree. Yeah, I don't like the imperative way to do things either. I'm with you, Shunzi. Sorry. Yeah, I like to keep things simple as well. I'm totally on board with you. I absolutely don't think that Saga and Observables are the better choice. Yeah, the generators, I've never seen generators make, well, I shouldn't say that. There are use cases for generators. I don't think that UI asynchrony is a good use case for generators. Observables, people who love them just totally love them. But it takes it's a long journey to get from, I don't know anything about observables to I'm an observable master. And I'm still not an observables master at all. So maybe that can color my opinion on them a little bit, but any observables code that I've seen has been just really complex. I see these little demos of like, okay, so now we can follow the mouse track and we can merge that in with this other stream. And now we've got both of these things and we can do interesting things. And like, okay, yeah, interesting. And I'm sure that would be kind of difficult to write, but like, I'm just doing UI async logic. I don't know. I have a hard time seeing observables as being really helping me in my practical problems that I'm having. I'm sure there are a lot of people who disagree with me though. So anyway, good luck convincing your coworkers against that. General question here in the help channel. Looking for browser detector, simple JS lightweight library, if someone knows. Okay, so you just want to detect the user agent. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I wouldn't bother using a hook for that at all. Maybe a function that abstracts away getting the user agent string. I don't even know, how do you get the user agent string? This is not a thing that I do on the client very often, but let's see what they do. Yeah, it's in a provider. Yeah, see, like it just makes it so complicated for what I think is no real reason. User agent. So we've got a parser and the provider, interestingly, accepts the user agent. Yeah, so I mean, what they offer here is this logic right there. So I would say, make a little function that is this, get UA info, and then call get UA info with the window navigator user agent. Oh, so we've also got to bring that in, whatever that is. That's interesting. I mean, you may not even need that. I would probably just use this get user agent parser. This is the library. Yeah, just use this, call it with the user agent. It'll give you all the info you need. There's no reason to put something like that in a hook. That doesn't make any sense to me. It just adds complexity. So, yep. So here's the thing. Now, one situation where that might be useful, maybe, probably not, but maybe, is a server rendered application. Because let's say you've got this component like all the way down here that doesn't have access to the request that is rendering the page. And then you've got the root component up here that does, because you're rendering right up here. And so you can pass or render the provider with the user agent string. And then all the way down here, you use that hook to get the info about the user agent. That could be useful. And then on the browser side of things, instead of passing the request user agent stuff, you pass window navigator user agent. And that renders all the way down here. And so this component down here doesn't know where the user agent info comes from. And this component up here, like at the app level, gets its user agent string in a different place from whether it's client or server. And then the one down here doesn't care whether it's client or server. It doesn't make a difference. Okay, so there you go. That's a good use case for putting this inside of a hook, is so that you can get it out of context and render that context up at the top. So yeah, there's a nuance there. I like everything. Okay, sweet. Thanks for the question. That was interesting. Okay, take on micro front ends. Yeah, I don't have a lot of thoughts on that myself. Part of me feels like it's a problem looking for a solution, but I know that like I have friends who work on this. So Justin McMurdy and I have been friends for a long time, and he is a major contributor to and maintainer of SPA, single SPA. And so we had a conversation about this on Chats with Kent a few, when was this? I don't put dates on this stuff because it's all like, I try to make it timeless, but this was a while ago. Yeah, so you can take a look at what Justin has to say about it. I'm not totally sold on the value. Yago's typing here because Yago's working on federated modules, and that's kind of what that's necessary, or that is a feature to help micro front ends. I can see it as being useful. So like at PayPal, we had a bunch of different teams. They were all building their own thing. And when this team wanted to ship something, or like you could tell which parts of PayPal were parts of which app based on whether you got a full page refresh going from one to the other. And so the idea behind single spot is that you can have all these different repos, but they're all connected. And so you don't need a full page refresh to get from one to the other. I think that's probably the biggest distinguishing characteristic about single spot, or about that sort of thing. So yeah, Yago probably has a lot more useful tips on this. Yago, you should do your own office hours. You've got lots of ideas. Okay, sweet. How to scale React app and avoid spaghetti code. Boy, that is a tough question, Electo. You're asking the tough ones here today. I think probably actually several of the blog posts that I shared already will help you on that. So when to break up a component should help, and application state management. Another one that should help is co-locate state. That should help as well. So hopefully those help you. Good luck. Oh yeah, that's interesting. Cool. Mentioned previously that you prefer Jotai over Recoil when it comes to atom-based management. Could you explain a bit more as why? So to clarify my preference, I have never built anything and shipped it to production that used either of these tools. So all of my experience with these is just playing around with them. And the biggest reason that I prefer Jotai over Recoil is, at least at the time I was doing my evaluation, Jotai had much better TypeScript support than Recoil. That was the biggest thing. Also, Jotai required less boilerplate to get set up. Both of these were pretty early when I was testing them out, and so they may have changed, but that's where that preference came from. Okay, sweet. That's pretty much it. One more question. Go ahead. Don't ask to ask. Just ask. In fact, we've even got a little bot. That's no, it's there you go. Don't ask to ask. Just ask, and we will answer if we can. Yeah, go ahead. We've got a hand raised here.
Can I talk now?
Yeah.
We are building an application around Next.js and incrementally static generation for building a blog site. My question was, imagine we are having 2,000, 1 million blog posts, and every 5 minutes they are incrementally generated. And I want to get the slog of the posts. How can I even get the slog of post from the API call? Because there are 1 million, for example, slogs to incrementally build.
Sure. So my first question is that realistic that you'd have 1 million blog posts?
Yes. We are. Imagine Medium, for example, or some.
Sure. Okay. So if we're talking about that scale, first of all, I would say this is actually one of the biggest reasons why I think that static site generation is garbage. I'm so sick of SSG. Yeah, I'm so over it. My blog is only 178 posts, and with all of the stuff that that Gatsby is doing, my building my blog takes a long time. So if we go to Netlify, my deploys for my site, actually it's really come down. But if I were to clear the cache, then it would take an extremely long time. And I've had to do a lot of weird things to speed this up as well. Like, for example, all of the image processing is happening on like Google Cloud stuff. Like, it's a disaster. I hate it so much. And that's why I'm leaving Gatsby and going with Remix, just because I just am not happy with static site generation. Next, incremental static site building, or whatever that thing's called. It's the same problem. They just kind of, the thing is that we decided, okay, static site generation is where it's at, and then hydrate on the client. It's perfect. You do all that building up front, and then you don't need a server to worry about building that at runtime. So we've created this solution that just invented a bajillion problems that we still don't have solved. There's so many problems, enormously with scale, just does not work at all. So I would recommend against going with static site generation, and just go with server-side rendering and leveraging caching so that you don't have to hit the server more than is necessary. And so you put a CDN between your server and your users, and you say, all right, here, like actually, you know what? I'm not going to describe this because I don't have time, but I have a reference for you. If we go to Remix, caching, YouTube, I bet we will find it. Oh, Remix.js. Oh, wait, no, here we go. Introduction to HTTP caching. So this will describe it really, really well. Give this a watch, and that will answer or give you all of the same thoughts that I have on this subject.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck. Okay, Omar, what's up?
Hey, Ken, sorry, you're like way over time now. Just wanted to show you
I
real
normally
quick.
am.
Good man. Can I share my Zoom? I don't have permission.
You got it.
Thank you. Okay, just quick question here. This is the same app that I've been showing you for the past, I don't know how many weeks. Very simple one, working with the GitHub API. And I'd like to stick another use query here. Let me show you. Let me just remove this.
So you did move over to React Query for everything.
I did, and it worked beautifully. It saved me a bunch of code.
Sweet.
And then just the last step that I'd like to do as an improvement is I'd like to stick a couple of use queries here. I'd like to get the user info as well. Let me just remove this window from. So instead of one only to get the user gists, I'd like to have another use query within the same call, within the same hook, and then like this destructure both the data, status, and errors of the both use query hooks. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
But the problem is that I'm facing is that this is rendering on initial, when you first start the app, it renders, so it's breaking everything down. And I'd like to use enabled for both, so it doesn't run until I tell it, until I press the button to fetch. How would you recommend I do that? I couldn't
Well, so is there a reason? Sorry, I've never actually used use queries. That didn't exist when I was playing around with or building the Bookshelf app. But what I would do with just use query is I would just have the first use query like you have it, and then on the next line, the next use query, and I would also say that's enabled. I would pass it the enabled flag. Does that not work?
I tried that, didn't work.
That's odd.
For some
that
reason,
sounds like a bug. So without being able to debug and dive in a little deeper, which I don't have time for right now. Yeah, that sounds wrong. Yeah, if you can make like a minimal reproduction of that, even like you would probably get away with a code sandbox or something, but yeah, just some minimal reproduction of that. I'm pretty sure that's a bug and they'd get that fixed, because that sounds very strange. It should not be enabled if or it shouldn't run if enabled is false.
Okay, and then one more thing just before you go, really quickly.
Sure.
This file is the only test that I have for the whole app. Does that look good? What else would you test? Like, is there anything missing in your opinion? What else would you test here?
Well, I can't. I don't think you've ever shown me what the app actually does. But if
let me send you a link then, and we'll discuss it next office hours. How's that?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Thank you, Kat. Appreciate it.
Sure. Cool. Anybody else as I wrap things up? Oh, question. Can we download it? Recorded meeting. This here, let me go grab the link. This is being recorded right now and it's being broadcast to the YouTubes. And I will pin this message here, and I'll share my screen so y'all can see what I'm talking about. So I'll pin this message. And so if you click on the pins right here, then you'll see the link to the YouTube. But this is on my YouTube channel. It'll be there forever. So if you ever want to look at past meetings and watch me answer questions for hours, then they're all there. So cool. Any other last questions before we say goodbye?
Do you hear me, Kent?
Yes. Hi there, Mert.
Yeah. So how are you?
Good. Did I probably
So-
said your name wrong. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So my question is not code related, but it's more like career related. Can I
Sure.
ask still?
Yeah.
So I'm a junior web developer. Like I do JavaScript full stack, mostly front end, and I'm working on some freelancing projects like paid. So 2 of them going to be live. Then I will have completed 2 projects in real projects. So it's a huge accomplishment for me. So I was just wondering, do you think it's possible for me to find a remote European job with a portfolio, strong portfolio, and showing that I have worked in 2 real projects? Do you think
Yeah.
something like this is possible?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's possible. So I think what you're more asking is, should I invest the time into looking for it? Like, would it be worthwhile looking for remote jobs? And I would say 100%. Absolutely. There's no harm in looking for it. In fact, recently I was on a podcast where I described what I would do if I were just joining the software industry. And I think it was this one. Like if I were just joining today, how would I go about getting a job? So hopefully this gives you an idea of the way I think about this. But yeah, as a quick answer, yes, absolutely. Go for it.
Thank you so much, Ken. Thank you.
Yeah. Good luck. It'll be hard. Sorry, I didn't want to make sure that's clear. Well, it's not an easy thing,
Yeah,
but I think
course.
it's worthwhile.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Sure. All right, sweet. This is fun. Thanks everybody for hanging out. Yeah, I should be back next week. I don't think I have anything going on next week. No reason to cancel. I don't have any cancellations listed. I actually do know of some like family vacations I need to put as cancellations on here, but in general, you should see me on Saturdays. And yeah, thanks for hanging out. This is fun. We'll see you all in the future.